We are back on Get Up, and our next game from the NBA is called Either Or. Hey, Udonis Haslem, was this Celtic playoff run dominant or was it fortunate? Which was those?
Dominant. You got to give credit where credit's due. The numbers speak for themselves. The way they were able to go through losing one game early on and losing one game against Dallas. You can't take anything away from what they're able to do, and the way they dominated through the regular season as well, the 20-point wins and all those numbers you brought up. I'm still in awe of what they were able to do in the regular season. So, dominant.
Validation. I like it. Hey, Zach Lowe, are the Celtics closer to being one and done or being a dynasty?
I think every team in the NBA that wins the championship right now in this environment is closer to being one and done than being a dynasty. That doesn't mean they can't do it. I want them to chase the repeat hard, stated as their goal, lean into it. But I guess I have to go one and done.
Circle that one. I want to come back to that, actually. Artie, our producer today, I want to come back to that because I think there's another interesting question that sort of brings up. But UD, let me come back to you then. So who's the best player on this team? Is it Brown or is it Tatum?
This is the one I hate. This is the one I hate. As a guy who was just recently in the NBA locker rooms and you win a championship, it really doesn't matter. But if I have to pick, I'm going to say the best player is Tatum. The best player is just Jayson Tatum, hands down. But the alpha of that team, and there's levels to being an alpha, I think is Jaylen Brown. The way he accepted the matchup to guard Luka, not stop Luka, but pick him up 94 feet, put himself out there and be vulnerable. But Jayson Tatum is the best player. Only few guys that have finished the series 30 and 10. He's one of them. So you talk about MJ, you talk about Steph, you talk about Walt Frazier, and these guys. So there's only few guys that have been able to do that. So he's put himself in elite company. He is the best player in that.
That's right. And so look, I think that this is interesting because we've seen how defensive the Celtics have been. A lot of their comments talking about their critics, talking about all the noise that they've heard. Jayson Tatum had this tweet yesterday, and I know it's become sort of the fashionable thing to say when you win a championship. What are they going to say now? But there was a tweet that was put up of all the different accomplishments of this team, including him personally, and he tweeted, what are they going to say now? I guess the question is, was there ever real criticism of him? And if so, was it ever legitimate? Zach?
I think there was real criticism, which sounds a little bit ridiculous because he's been first-team All-NBA 3 years in a row, which means he's been considered one of the 5 guys worthy of that honor. I think people really nitpicked him too much for one series, and it was the 2022 Finals against the Warriors, where he just wasn't good enough as a 24-year-old in the Finals. And they looked at that series, and they completely forgot that this dude saved Boston's season in that same year on the road in Milwaukee, 46 points in a back-to-the-wall Game 6, an all-time great elimination game for the Boston freaking Celtics. And then last season, 51 points in Game 7 against the Sixers. He bizarrely got not enough credit for those games. People questioned his sort of intangibles. Can he take a team across the finish line? This and that. He had already proven that, at least to me. And I think some of the criticism in that sense was a little bit unfair.
Maybe some of the rest of it, and I want to get Domonique in this as well, but UD, without disrespecting the Miami Heat team that I know, remains so near and dear to your heart. I mean, last year, that's a series that most people do not believe the Celtics should have lost. The Heat were a play-in team. The Celtics had home court advantage and were heavily favored to win. Wound up falling down Love 3, then lost Game 7 at home. He's the best player on that team. There was criticism that came from that as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And this is where this year we get to see the growth and the maturation of Jayson Tatum, because our focus was to make the game physical, frustrate him, make it more about the refs and more about everything else besides the basketball game. And he was able to fall for that. Jayson Tatum does not fall for that anymore. It's about basketball. It's about winning. It's not personal. It's not about anything else but that. The refs can't help you and they can't hurt you. And he's figured that out now. The elite competition, the elite level that he's playing at and the places that he's putting himself, I just said he's in the conversations with Jordan. He's in the conversations with Walt Frazier. He's in the conversations with Steph, the way he finished out that series. He's put himself in those things. So I don't say those. I think the expectations are unrealistic.
Here are the names that you were talking about. It's Frazier.
Yeah, look at that.
Big game James.
Look at that. 30 and 10 and clinching the series win. So when you put yourself in this conversation with these guys and these players, how can you say that, the things that he has are not, earned?
Domonique, you're in here with me 2-3 days a week throughout the entire football season, and I feel like in football there's a lot of this for guys who haven't won a championship yet. There's a lot of this for Josh Allen. There's a lot of this for Dak Prescott. There's a lot of this for players who are obviously terrific, But until they get over the top, until we see them at the very end holding up the most important trophy, there are always those questions and always that criticism. So does that end now, in your opinion, for Jayson Tatum?
I mean, I think there's a difference between should it end and does it end. I think it probably should end, but I don't think it does end, in part because of the names that Udonis was just naming. Like, he's put himself in that company, so he's going to be compared to them. Like, the criticism of LeBron James still hasn't stopped. People are still comparing him to Jordan and how many championships he has. So Jayson Tatum is in that class as far as being a top player on a team that is kind of set up to be a dynasty, whether they become one or not. So right now, the criticism is going to be him getting those next trophies. And I think it's kind of ironic that he did the what they're going to say now, because Steph was obviously, it seemed, responding to people saying that he had never won a finals MVP. And that was kind of the last thing that anyone could hold over his head. Jayson Tatum hasn't done that yet. So to be clear, I'm not saying that he needs to, but I am saying that people are going to expect that from him. There's going to be one more mountain for him to climb, and I think it's going to be league MVP, it's going to be finals MVP, it's going to be the next measuring stick for Jayson Tatum.
First of all, anyone who was holding the lack of a finals MVP over Stephen Curry's head was doing basketball wrong. There was no way to hold that over Stephen Curry's head. And look, I'll say it again. Jayson Tatum, to UD's point and Neek's point about the conversations he's in now, the standards he's met for himself and made for himself, they go back to the finals, conference finals next year, and he shoots 35% in the series and goes 0 for 8 in the fourth quarter, by all means, he's going to be subject to the same criticism that LeBron would get if he did that Luka would get if he did that. But make the criticism about the performance, the criticism about what's in his guts, what's in his soul, what the intangibles are, that's over. He's a champion now forever.
And the reason that I want the dog here, because without knowing it, he taught me how to have these kind of conversations. So the Boston Celtics get their 18th championship this week, edging past the Lakers to once again have the outright claim of most NBA titles. If you think that doesn't matter, then you haven't asked people from the Boston Celtics or the Los Angeles Lakers. On paper, now you would figure Boston's a step ahead. Stephen A. doesn't see it that way.
The Boston Celtics have 23 NBA Finals appearances. The Los Angeles Lakers have 32. So yes, you do have one more ring. That is fair. But the Los Angeles Lakers have 9 more finals appearances, which means that although they have one less title, their time spent in relevancy is significantly more than yours. That would make you the better overall franchise. I would say that the Los Angeles Lakers is still the best franchise in NBA annals.
Okay, so it's a fascinating debate. And as I mentioned, if you think this doesn't matter to these guys, then you didn't see Magic Johnson tweeting moments after. The confetti was still midair in Boston, and he was not tweeting congratulations. He was tweeting very simply, I hate that the Celtics officially have more championships than us now. So here's how I want to frame this conversation, Doug. In the other 3 major North American sports, it's pretty clear-cut who the preeminent franchise is. It's the Yankees, it's the Canadiens, it's the Packers. They overwhelmingly have dominated in terms of championships all time. Boston and LA have dominated this thing together as a tandem. They've won 35 championships between us in a league that only goes back to the late 1940s. In your opinion, which is the preeminent franchise in the NBA?
To me, it's not even arguable. It's the Celtics. I mean, 4 of those championships for the Lakers came in Minneapolis.
Yes.
So now we're going to count George Mikan as an LA Laker? That's a different franchise, for crying out loud. They won 4 titles, so they got 13 in LA. They don't got 17. They have 13. That's the first thing. Second thing is, Celtics are 7-3 against them in the final. Yes, 7-3. That's got to count for something, does it not?
Yes.
And then third thing, think of the Lakers in their run. It's Magic, Kareem, and it's Kobe. The Celtics, it's Cousy and Russell. Then it's Russell. Then it's Havlicek and Cowens. They won twice.
Right.
Then after that, it's Bird. He won 3 times. Then it's Pierce. He won 1 title. And now it's Tatum. So you have 5 or 6 different eras of Celtic greatness. Well, if you really wanted to be difficult about it, you got a couple of years of 2 or 3 great players. Magic, Kareem, they won the 5.
Right.
And then you obviously have
Shaq
Kobe
and
and Gasol, but it's still Kobe.
Right.
That's another 5. So you got to keep, now the Lakers, you got Russell Cousy, then you got Havlicek Cowens, then you got Bird and McHale, then you got Pierce in that crew, and now you got Tatum. Those are 4 different eras of Celtics. And you got Mikan. How does Mikan count? He was in the Minneapolis Lakers in the 1950s. That should not be part of the equation. 17-13. There you go.
For those who don't know why the LA team is called the Lakers, despite the fact that there was no lake anywhere near Los Angeles, it's because they were formed as the Minneapolis Lakers. The pushback on this, there are a couple of them. Stephen A. gave you one. They've been to a lot more finals, so they've been good a lot more times than the Celtics have been. The other is they have more MVPs. They've had more historical greats. I know the Celtics always beat them, but they had West and they had Baylor and they had Wilt when they had him, and over the course of time, Magic and Kareem and all the other stars on those teams, Worthy, etc. And then they had that little mini era that Boston didn't have with Shaq and Kobe, 2 all-time greats and league MVP types. That would feel to me like a pretty good pushback for LA.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I like the MVP argument. West never won an MVP, but and Baylor was there too. I get all that.
He's that caliber player.
Yeah, that caliber player. But 7-3, 18-13. And the periods of dominance, I don't know how you even argue it to me.
What do you think, Zach?
Well, if we're going to hit the Lakers for the Minneapolis thing, I do think we have to say a disproportionate amount of the Celtics titles are 50s and 60s when the league was much smaller and you didn't have to win as many playoff rounds to get there.
True.
And the talent level wasn't the same. Look, the story is not who's the better franchise. It's the gap between them and everybody else. If to Stephen A's point, that Shaq-Kobe era when the Lakers were awesome and the Celtics were not, that's really what's separating the two teams right now in terms of the time they've spent toward the top of the league. And if we look back 5 years from now, that could change, that gap could narrow because the Celtics aren't going anywhere and the Lakers have a lot of questions there. So that argument could be a lot more even or Celtics-y in a half decade.
Well, that was one of the points Jay Will made here yesterday. We barely got to touch on this because we were right in the aftermath of the game. But if you sort of juxtapose where these franchises are right now, the Celtics with 2 stars in their prime and seemingly going like this, and the Lakers with 2 stars clearly much closer to the end of the greatness of their career and the huge question marks surrounding their coaching situation and everything else, it does feel right now huge advantage Celtics.
Oh, definitely huge advantage Celtics. But if I go overall, I got to go with what have you done for me lately? I'm 44 years old.
Okay.
I was born in 1980. Proud to say I'm the youngest person at this table. I never get to say that. So I only know what I saw. And what I saw is 11-5. 11 championships for the Lakers, 5 for the Celtics.
This is about to get even more interesting. Stephen A. Smith has made his way into the studio.
I'm going to unlock the jacket,
Stephen A.
and sit back.
Oh, I have a microphone for him actually here. Hello, Stephen A. Wait, let me give you this.
How you doing? I'm not made up with nothing, but it don't
No,
matter.
but you look
it's okay.
terrific.
It's okay.
How you doing?
You were born camera ready.
Oh, they got
Lakers.
That is a good
Well, I miss this. Stephen A. has been so many other places besides New York. I never get this walk on anymore. It is nice to have you back.
I miss you, so I had to do it, and then I got my man Doggy.
Oh, jeez.
Dog in the house. Look at you see that?
Udonis, he looks good.
That brother right there.
Yeah,
Look
it
at
looks
him.
good.
And
No
this man
tie,
right
no
here.
tie. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were going to
Doesn't
be
matter.
here.
You look good.
Okay.
You look good. Now, Wendy, I told him he put on the tie. Now he look like he running for office. I don't know what's up with him.
Let me ask you the one question of the day. We've been debating this, but if there's one take I want from you and get everybody ready for first take in 21 minutes, has Jayson Tatum finally and forever answered his critics? Is the criticism, the questioning of Tatum and his greatness and everything else now something of the past and never to be done again?
Well, listen, you can never say never to be done again because it's all about what have you done for me lately. That's why we love Janet Jackson still. It's all about what have you done for me lately. But he's a champion, and you can never take that away from him. And he showed up in the finals. You can't take that away from him as well. He's a terrific, fantastic player. Recording 30 and 10 in the NBA Finals game, no Celtic in history has ever done that. None of them. Wow. None of the names you'd come up. So you got to take that into consideration as well. He could have easily gotten the MVP award. It's just that Jaylen Brown was a model of consistency from Game 1 through the finals. But he showed up in Games 3 and Game 5, and you got to give credit where credit is due. So the respect is there. He's a champion. We got a mad love for him. But, like he said, you got to do it again next year.